Welcome to Main Street, Nevada County. My name is Jim Firth. I'm the host of Main Street, Nevada County. We have a very special guest today, Kathleen O'Sullivan, who is the director of Wags and Warriors, a program that's designed to acquire, train, and provide service dogs to veterans. Welcome to the program, Kathleen.
Thank you, Jim.
I guess we're going to start with a question about how this program became into being and how you got involved.
Well, I'm a dog trainer, and I took a service dog training workshop in Texas through Service Dogs, Inc. in Texas. And that's how I got really interested in training service dogs. And a friend who's a Vietnam vet, he said, you know, what would be really good is start a nonprofit for veterans and service dogs. So he sort of planted the seed, and then it just kind of morphed and kept going. But
so is the mission then, I guess, of the organization? Is that really it?
The mission is to rescue dogs and train them as service dogs, and then match them with veterans with PTS.
Okay. And where do you find these dogs? Are they?
So we go to shelters, and the interesting thing about finding the right service dog, there's a lot of criteria the dog has to pass. Mm-hmm. So you can go into a shelter and not find a dog. Service Dogs Inc., where I got my training, they look at 1,500 dogs a year, and out of that 1,500, they only get 18. So there's a lot of criteria the dog has to pass, because the dog can't be fearful. Mm-hmm. The dog has to, be able to, in the end, after the training, but you sort of want the temperament of a dog that can be around other dogs, be around people, and not engage, to just ignore them. The dog has to focus on the veteran, not the environment. So a lot of dogs, if they have any kind of fear issues, that doesn't work, because they're going to be fearfully barking or lunging at other dogs if they're fearful of them. So that's the number one criteria, is they've got the right temperament. But they also need to, we've taken dogs out of the kennel because they pass the criteria in the kennel, and we take them outside, and we want a dog that is food motivated, because we train using positive reinforcement. Mm-hmm. And so if they're not food motivated, it's a little harder to train them. And we don't like, putting choke collars around them and yanking them around. That's kind of the old school.
Okay.
And we want a dog that's got a good tug, that likes to tug, because we teach the dogs to open doors and drawers and, pick up items. And that's hard to do if the dog doesn't have a good tug. So that's one of the criteria. And then the other one is, we'll actually hug the dog to us. And we had a dog that passed almost everything, but when we tried to hug the dog to us, it was like, oh no, get away, get away, get away. So the dog needs to be calm in the arms, because the veteran with PTS is going to need some calming behaviors. And one of those is that, the dog will come, up on their lap, put their paws up on the lap, put their head on the lap, do something where they touch, they nudge with their nose. Mm-hmm. And, where if needed, which the veteran just hugs the dog, and the dog leans into them, and those are all calming behaviors for the veteran with PTS.
Yeah, those are pretty stringent criteria. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, would it not make sense to try to breed a dog to those kind of disciplines?
That's a good question. A lot of organizations do that, not just for veterans with PTS, but with CNI dogs breed their dogs. But when you breed the dogs, you've got to have someone raise the dogs, and even then, I think the percentage is about 33% of them don't pass. So when we go to a shelter, it takes a lot of searching to find a dog between 1 and 2, but you pretty much know the temperament by then. So if you're taking a dog from a puppy, now Lila, we did take from a puppy because someone donated her, but this is not what we will normally be doing.
Okay.
Because it's a lot of work.
Sure.
And she was bred for temperament, so I'm sure she's got a really nice temperament. She's going to make a really great service dog once we can get her through her she's quiet right now, but she has some really wild puppy energy, and they sort of have to get to the calm state.
When the dogs have completed their training and gone through the program, and they're assigned to a veteran, I guess, I don't know if assigning is the correct word or not.
Matched.
Matched. How do the veterans, benefit really from having a dog that they might not otherwise, see that kind of
Right.
advantage?
So the statistics are that 22 veterans a day are committing suicide. And that is awful. And unfortunately, the veterans right now, the VA, their solution is drugs, drugs, and more drugs. And there's actually a bill that's trying to be passed where the VA will start paying for service dogs for veterans, because there's a lot of veterans that have been matched with service dogs throughout the country. There's a lot of groups that do this, and they take fewer meds, and the big thing is they're able to go out and function again, because what happens is they come home and they tend to isolate. I remember asking my son-in-law, who served in Afghanistan, I said, where do we find these veterans? And he goes, in bars. But a lot of them just isolate. They stay home, right. And even that statistic of 22 suicides, it's questionable about how many are actual suicides, because if they're taking a lot of drugs and then they mix alcohol with it, how many are actually overdosing? We have one veteran in our program who, he just wouldn't go out. He was just sat on the couch all day. And they experience a lot of anxiety when they go outside when they have PTS, and so they tend to stay in. And we trained a dog. We have a volunteer and his wife, and they train the dog, and then we put him with the vet. And so the dog and the vet are still in training, but he's able to go out and go to Costco, and he couldn't stay in Costco for more than a minute before, but he can actually go in there and be in the store. So what the dogs do for the veterans is, number one, they give them a purpose, because they need to get up and take care of the dog and exercise the dog, but it really allows them to have some not experience the anxiety they do when they go out in public. And so we teach the dog a lot of cues. One of the big ones is teaching the dog to create a safe space for the veteran, because when we're in line in a grocery store, we don't really notice people behind us, but people with PTS, that makes them very anxious, and they can get really agitated, and it's like, they just want the people to get away. So Lila's been trained, and I work in, a lot of the local stores and grocery stores that have been really great about letting us come in and work. But I'll stand in line and I'll give her the cue to stand behind me. So she creates a big space, and so there's no way someone can get up and get close to me. And we can teach them to do, circle all the way around. We can teach them to lay down in front, lay down in back. And we can also teach them, for us to walk around a corner, or, walk past a building with windows or bushes. We think nothing of it. But these veterans who have had, these traumatic experiences, they're on high alert all the time. And and they're like, oh, who's up there? Who's going to jump out? And so you can train the dog to actually, go around blind corners first. You can train them to go through the house and go through all the rooms so that they know no one's in the house. You can teach them all sorts of, and that decreases their anxiety and allows them to be able to go out and function again and have a life again.
Yeah, that's great. And Lila, what breed is she?
Lila's a purebred golden retriever. But again, our mission is to rescue dogs. So we did rescue her because, well, I guess you could call it a rescue. Someone actually donated her to us. But normally we won't be doing this. Normally we'll be going and getting, shelter dogs. Shelter dogs is our goal, to actually rescue a dog, because then they both have a new leash on life, so to speak.
So different breeds are
different
have you
breeds.
found one breed better than another?
I have to say golden retrievers and labs, or golden retriever mix and lab mix, really are the good breed, because they are food motivated. Their temperaments are usually really nice. They have good tug, and they're easy to train. They're smart dogs. You know, one of the things that we don't do at this point is we have to pass up bully breeds, so pit bulls, Rottweilers, and I have to say pit bulls actually make really good service dogs. But we're not taking on bully breeds because the public has a problem with them, and these dogs are going to be
Right.
out in public and they have full public access, and a lot of people have problems with pit bulls.
Yeah.
So we're staying away from bully breeds.
Oh, that's too bad. My
Quote,
wife
unquote.
and I had a pit bull mix. She was a wonderful dog.
They're great dogs.
One of the friendliest, most lovable dogs we've had. We have a lab now, who is very much food motivated, as they tend to be.
Yes.
Does it take a long time to train?
It does, you know, especially when you're teaching, like we have one veteran, we have about 10 veterans right now on our wait list. And one veteran is confined to a wheelchair. And so he's going to need things like, we're going to have to train the dog to, you know, jump up and push the button to open the doors when he goes into stores and banks.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's real easy to teach those once we clicker trained with the positive reinforcement, and once they're clicker trained, it's pretty easy to get that stuff. But what takes really the longest and the most difficult part is getting the dog to walk in public and focus on the handler and not the environment.
Sure.
That's the most challenging part. Like I take Lila through grocery stores, and what she wants to do right now is be a Hoover vacuum and pick up everything off the floor. So her focus a lot is on the floor, and it's difficult because if she gets something off the floor, then she's being reinforced for searching for things on the floor. So that's one of the toughest things to train, and have her just keep her focus on
So
me.
you mentioned clicker trained. Can you explain a little bit of what that is? I've seen it, and we did some video at one of the training classes. So I've seen it in operation, but some people may not understand what that is about.
Clicker training is great. Karen Pryor sort of initiated that, and it's all based on, if you've been to SeaWorld, you know, the dolphins are doing all these amazing things. Well, they didn't put a choke collar on them, and they didn't tug them on a leash. And, you know, how did they get them to do all those behaviors? Well, they start by teaching the dolphins that when they hear the whistle, it means fish is coming.
Okay.
So then once they've charged the dolphin to, we call it charging to the clicker too. So once the dolphin realizes the whistle means fish is coming, then you can start training them. And so they'll put like a line across the water, and the dolphin will swim over the water. And as soon as the dolphin swims over that line, they blow the whistle, and the dolphin goes, oh, I did something right, and they come and get the fish. And then they'll raise the line, so the dolphin, so it's you know, you sort of, it's called chaining of events, where you start adding on. Sometimes you work backwards, sometimes you work forward. But once they're clicker trained, so like I was showing to you how I taught Lila today to pick up a credit card.
Right.
And what I started with was, she knows hold. I've taught her how to hold something. I'll put something in her mouth and say hold, and she'll just hold it, which easy to train on a golden retriever, not so much on other breeds, because that's what they do, right? They hold things in their mouth and they retrieve.
Right.
And so I started by having her hold the credit card, and then I clicked and gave her a treat, and then I moved it further on the floor, and then I put it on the floor, and then she picked it up and held it, and I clicked. So she learns that the click means, oh, I did it right, and the treat is coming. So when you're teaching new behavior, you do a lot of clicking and treating, and then eventually, once you've taught the behavior, you don't need to do the clicking anymore.
So the clicking it's like a cricket sound.
It's like a little cricket
You're
sound.
just pushing
I have
Do
one.
you have one? Let's see if we can just do that so people can understand.
So this is kind of, I like the loud one for the bigger dogs,
All right.
but it's just,
Is it going to wake her up? Might.
she's like, oh, what did I do
Okay.
right? I'm sleeping.
No, where's my treat?
Want a treat? Yeah, we'll let her sleep.
Yeah, she's already picked up credit cards and
Yes.
cords.
And eating cords. Sit. Yes, good girl. And then we're going to see if we can do loose leash to the next mat. Ready? Let's go. Stay tight. And when she looks at me, I like to click and treat.
So we have, obviously it takes time, takes energy, motivation on your part. training a dog, my wife and I were involved in training our lab for a while, and it was expensive, to do that. Is it very expensive for your program to operate for doing
Well,
the
it
training
is.
for
We
these
have
dogs?
to pay trainers to train the dogs, and we're working with some volunteers who are interested in training, and so we're teaching them certain things, and then they'll work with the dogs. So it sort of depends how much of a reduced rate we can get from trainers to do it. And that's why some dogs and programs are so expensive, because the training, and in answer to your question, it usually takes about a year to train a dog. So, it takes about a year. There's some controversy over that, even within our group of volunteers. It's like, it shouldn't take that long, but it really, it does. If you want a dog that's gonna, we base our criteria on the Assistance Dog International criteria, and so there's certain things that they have to do. And one is walk through a grocery store and not turn and sniff a person and not turn and sniff the aisle. They've got to stay focused on the handler, and that takes a while to get to that point. And then plus all the other things you're teaching on cue, like, lean into the person, which the dog tends to do that naturally when they start to bond with the person. And they tend to, dogs are really good about picking up anxiety with people, and they'll just innately kind of learn to do that.
Right. I had a Ridgeback before I lived here in Nevada County, and he was a leaner.
Yeah.
He really enjoyed that.
A lot of dogs like to just lean in.
Right. The veterans who contact you, how do they get a hold of you? How do you get together with veterans or get the veterans together with the dog?
Well, basically, what we started part of our program where we offered that we would train veterans who had their own dogs, help them train their dogs. But we're not going to continue that because it's hard for the veterans to train their dogs. It's hard for anyone in the general public to train their dogs and stay committed to it and really, really commit to training the dog every day and making progress. And the other thing is some dogs aren't really meant, like one of the things the dog can't do is act aggressively towards another dog.
Right.
And a lot of dogs do that. So we had some of the veterans come whose dogs do that. So, if we personally would not have chosen that dog as a service dog. But so that's another challenge, because not all of them have the right temperament.
Okay. And do the veterans have to pay for these dogs after they're trained
No,
and ready to be adopted, if that again is the correct term?
So this is what we're offering the veterans is a dog at no cost to the veteran. So we do everything through donations. We're also looking for people to sponsor, because if we can get people to sponsor the dog, that's really helpful. Because as far as what it costs, it can cost $20,000 and up to train a dog for a year for veteran care, food, and the training and the boarding. Our long-term goal is to get some property with a facility on it, but we're going to need like a big facility, because you need something big to be able to train these dogs in and work with them. And if you can get a big facility, you can train more dogs. I mean, ideally we'll train 15, 20 dogs a year. And so a place where the dogs can be trained, the dogs can be housed, and the veterans can come and work with the dogs once we've got the dogs trained, and we can match them with them. But we don't have that yet. That is what we want, though.
That's an ambitious goal.
It is. Right now, we're just, finding people who can take the dog in their home and take care of the dog, and ideally train the dog if they have any training experience.
So if somebody has a dog or if a dog they own has had a litter and they're not able to care for all of the dogs that are suddenly part of their family, is there a way for them to contact you to see if you could do an evaluation of
Not on a puppy, because we're not taking puppies, but I mean, if anyone ever comes across a dog or they have a dog, the thing is the dog has to be 1 to 2 years old. And the reason for that is once we've trained the dog, we want the dog to have a decent lifespan for the veteran. Right. I mean, if we take an 8-year-old dog and then it only can be in service, 3 or 4 years, that's not really worth it. So that's why you want to look for a dog that's between 1 and 2. So yeah, if someone had a dog with a great temperament that they thought would make a good service dog, give us a call.
Give us a call.
Or if they see one at shelter, give us a call and direct us to the shelter.
Okay, and I'm anticipating that we have a website for you that's going
We
to
have
be
a
showing on
website.
the screen. You may want to mention what that website address is.
It's wagsandwarriors.org. And you had asked about how the veterans get in touch with us. Most get in touch with us through the website. There's an application that they can fill out online. And once they've completed that application, we have one of our counselors/therapists, they're both therapists, that go out and interview the veteran and visit their home and make sure that the whole family's on board, because sometimes the veteran wants the dog, but the wife doesn't.
Okay.
And it's really important that everyone's on board and that they've got a living situation that is conducive to have a dog. And then they have their therapist fill out some paperwork, because we need their therapist to say, yes, this person does need a dog, a service dog, and would benefit from it.
Okay.
And then once they have that, once all that is passed, then they're on our wait list, and then we just have to get the dogs and get them trained and get them matched.
Right. There was some conversation when we came to do the videos at the Vets Hall that you sometimes have clients who, as you've mentioned earlier, don't live right in town, but are isolated to an extent out in the woods. And I am guessing renting properties or renting homes rather than owning a place. Have you found that there are landlords that are hesitant about veterans having service dogs on their properties, or has that not been a problem?
Even if they are, it's kind of too bad, because the American Disabilities Act, if you have to allow someone to have a service dog in an apartment or a house. It's illegal to say no.
Okay.
So if there's a veteran with PTS and they have a service dog, they can rent. They have full public access to. They can go in any store, movie theater, restaurant. The dog just has to be well behaved and trained.
Okay, that's good information, folks, for those of you who are thinking about acquiring a service dog through Wags and Warriors or not. That regardless of what your living situation is, if you're a renter, you have the right to have a service dog in your home. Which brings me, are there other organizations in the county that are providing dogs for veterans or otherwise?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. There's a group in Sacramento, but there's nothing local, and so we're really focusing on local veterans in Nevada County. That's our focus.
Okay.
And it's, I have to say, it's like we've had, I wish I had on video when these two different veterans, when they met their dogs, it's heartwarming. It's just, they get these big smiles on their faces and they just like hug these dogs. And you can see it, it's like a match made in heaven sometimes,
Sure.
And then when they tell you how, they're not afraid to go outside anymore, they're not afraid to go places, and they can go out with their family, and it's really huge what these dogs can do for these veterans.
Yeah, that's so nice. You mentioned a waiting list of some sort for people who want to acquire these dogs. Do you have many dogs in training now that may be available soon?
We don't, because we don't have the facility. So the only thing we have are Lila's in training right now. We've got another dog with the veteran in training that was being fostered by another volunteer. But my goal this year is to get Lila matched. She's 7 months old, and I'm hoping when she's a year, we'll see how her puppy energy goes, if she's still too wild and crazy. But that's 5 months. I'm hoping she'll, most of the time she's like this. 90% of the time she's like this. It's the 10% of the time that she chews through Nevada City TV cords.
Yes.
or does her what I call naughty behavior. But for a puppy, she's actually really good. But my hope is that we'll be able to find a couple more dogs. We're going to Homeward Bound tomorrow and hopefully partner with them and let them know what we're looking for in the temperament of the dog, and maybe they'll, think of us and call us when they get a good dog that comes into their rescue. But we do have someone that will do a board and train, who's a trainer at a pretty decent price.
Well, that's
So yeah.
And so volunteers. I mean, do you need folks to help in different
we
areas
always
of the
need
organization?
we always need volunteers. What we really need are trainers. We also need people to help do fundraising if they love doing fundraising. We need grant writers. We have someone that's donated a lot of her time, who's getting a new website up for us, and she's linking it to all the social media. But we need someone to manage that social media, like Facebook, build our fan base, because the more people that visit your social media, and it'll take them to the website, and the more people seeing your website,
Sure.
the higher up in Google search you get, and then that's how people see that you're out there and know that you're there.
Right.
So yeah,
So-
we need volunteers to do all of that.
So Wags and Warriors Facebook page. Make sure you like that page.
Yes.
That will certainly help boost them up on the list.
And you can watch the progress of Lila on it.
Excellent. Donations, I guess, are part of the fundraising component here. So can people then donate directly to the organization through
Yes.
your website?
Yes, they can do it through the website. The website should be up by the time you air this, but there'll be a PayPal link, and there's also an address if they want to just send in a check.
Send a check. That's great. Look, I want to thank you so much for being here today. This
Thank
has been
you.
very
Thank you for the
informative
opportunity.
and educational for me and hopefully for those of you out there. It's a great program. It's something I think that Nevada County can fully support and should be fully supporting. Our veterans are a human resource that we need to recognize and appreciate and encourage. And I hope that the program continues to be a success.
I do too. It's
Thanks.
it's great for our veterans, and our veterans helped us. We want to help them.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
Thank you.